Okay, we're live.
We're live.
Well, tell him to come right there in the communications area because that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, that's where he's at. He's in the communications area.
Okay, good.
Right.
This is the weirdest part because I know people are coming and going, what are they doing? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, guys, we're just sitting here waiting. We're warming up, getting ready to go, so you can listen to us behind the scenes.
It says live. Are you seeing us live on YouTube?
Hold on.
Oh, here we are. Okay. Yeah, it was an odd little town. It was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. You know?
Did you go up in the valley and to where all the vineyards are, or did you stay right in town?
I don't know. I was at the courthouse there. Didn't get to look around or anything. Well, it's time in about 10 seconds. And we're on.
We're live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
We're glad you're here. This is Body Language Membership. It's the live Q&A. And it's going out live on YouTube as well, but we take the questions that we're going to answer from Body Language Membership. Now, I'm going to spit my gum out. There's a garbage can right there.
It's a trademark.
I was getting hassled for that. Yeah, sorry about that. So, all right, well, let's get started. Greg, you said you had a question.
Yeah, there's a great one from Jed. I am 16, trying to figure out what to study. We need to be on our best behavior, Scott. He's 16. So I'm trying to figure out what to study in my college years. I'm very interested in body language and would like to have a career in it. Greg has mentioned he thinks it will be a growing field. How do I prepare for this? I have most of the books on the suggested book list and making my way through them. I've done body language tactics and true crime workshop. Thank you so much, Jed.
Yeah.
And I'm working my way through some of Chase's trainings as well. What are the training certifications out there? Well, I'm going to just start right here and say, yes, I do think it will become a growing field. And I do think there will become some standardization over time, Jed. There have been a couple of our partners in other places who've tried to create some standards around it. And you asked, do I need a BS? I think if you were today to go to college and get a degree in anything that's around behavior and psychology and sociology and those kinds of things, because don't forget that humans are social animals. It's one of the most complex parts of what we do. I think any of that can't hurt you. If you're looking for a career, the path right now is that people come to this from many places. So my intelligence background, Scott's working with people in interrogation and trying to get to confessions on embezzlement, Mark from theater and from coaching, and then Chase from straight out of the military, for example. And then you look at people like Janine Driver, who's an ATF agent. All those different places brought us here because we learned elements of it over the decades. A more concentrated study the way you're doing, I think, is powerful, but getting a degree in something that's related, it can't hurt you. I don't know that there will yet be a school by the time you're ready that says, hey, here's a 9-week credentialing or 28-week credentialing or any of that kind of course. So long answer is go after something that teaches you about physiology, human anatomy, how the brain works. Scott comes at it from a neurobiology point of view often. All those pieces matter. And so getting something that credentials you that way, along with all this, will give you an entry in from a different angle. Scott, you have a different answer?
No, you nailed that one. You always, every time we answer these and you get them, you cover everything on it. Here's one from Rachel Meadows. And Rachel's question, here's Rachel's question. I really want to change my job. A bit old now, 41. I don't even remember what I was doing when I was 40.
Earlier. Yeah.
I don't remember what I was doing when I was 41, but I know I was going, I got to do something different.
I just started a new career. Yeah.
And she just asks, are any ideas if there's a study route to do this or route to do this? Wow.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You just sort of answered that. So shoot, Rachel, 41, you're not a bit old. That's
so Rachel, two things for you. Number one, whatever you brought to the table to now changes the way you see body language and everything about it. So if you were in business or you were in medicine or you were in whatever it is, you have a different skill set. I always say if you take everything I know and apply it to your life, you'll have a different skill set. So don't think about it that way. Think about what you brought there. I left the Army at 30, almost 39, started a corporate career, and then wrote my first book when I was 43. So yeah, there you go. It takes you down the path it takes you when you discover what your passion is.
Okay, here's one from Aaron Chase. 2 questions. Do narcissists or psychopaths even realize when they're lying, like Casey Anthony or Dahlia Dippolito? And why do I feel embarrassed for or by them when seeing them lie, when seeing them lie and lie? Well, yeah, they realize they're lying because you're dealing with an ego when you're dealing with a psychopath. That's all it really is. So they know they're lying. They're doing things to make whatever situation you're in or they're in the best for them, so they can get the best out of it. And you feel embarrassed by them when you see them lie because you're normal, because your amygdalas work properly. So that's why it makes you feel odd. You're empathetic, and so that's why you're embarrassed for them at that point.
Love, hate, and greed. I always say people lie for love, hate, or greed. And it can be love of self, love of money, love of whatever, hate of, same thing, and then greed, whatever I can get for myself. So, yeah, they have lots of reason to lie because they're covering up something that they feel inadequate for. Remember, narcissists will self-aggrandize, and all of them are narcissists. So big, gigantic, sweeping movement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and just because you're a narcissist doesn't mean you're a psychopath. All psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths.
And not all psychopaths are dangerous. Most of the time, they're more dangerous to themselves than other people because they make bad choices. It's a way of being, and people have to learn to live with it like every other wiring issue, right?
Yeah. Here's Jamie Auerwick, Auerwick.
Hey, Scott, let's just stick with first names. That'll save a little bit of that.
Okay. Please talk about using eyes and eyebrows only since there are so many masks in use now. Well, it's interesting you'd say that. And what I find myself doing when I'm talking to somebody, I just feel myself squinting my eyes some so it looks like I'm smiling even though I'm not. And I just spent a bunch of time on a bunch of planes the past few days. And everybody else, I think, is doing that as well because you have to show that your cheeks are coming up, and everybody's eyes are getting more squinty when they smile, quote unquote, or what appears to be a smile, so they can show you they're smiling or that they're in a good mood. Everyone from the rental car thing to stewardess, or what do they call them?
Flight attendants.
Flight attendants. You don't say stewardess anymore. It shows you how lame. That everybody does that. They get that squint going real big so you can see that they're smiling.
So for me, this is the most important part of your communication. The way you connect with people, you can raise your brow quickly and people think you recognize them. You can use your brow to say, really? You can use one eyebrow, or you can use both tilted up in the middle to show sorrow. Your forehead I think, is an organ of communication with other people. So think about your brow that way and use your brow a lot, and you will communicate more effectively anyway. You can drive points home. You can ask for approval, a ton of things there. So pay attention to your upper face. Just go look in the mirror when you're talking and pay attention to what your face does normally. It's already there. It's just a matter of being aware it's going on. It for me, was one of the best things I ever learned when I was interrogating prisoners. You have two, and they say they don't recognize each other. You walk them past each other, and they do a quick brow rise of recognition, for example. It's a really easy thing.
Okay. I can't find, Rachel asks, I can't find I have dyslexia. I always have to say this. That's why I read so choppily, and it's odd, so it's kind of tough sometimes. I can't find a conclusive statement on the difference between sociopathy and a psychopath. Can you guys shed some light on this? I can tell you about it. In real life, okay, here we go. In real life, there are no sociopaths. What are termed sociopaths? It became sociopaths because you have psychopath, which sounds horrible, and no matter what level of psychopathy they're in. So in court, it sounds better when you call someone a sociopath, even though that isn't something nice or good to be called. So the difference there is this: you have nature versus nurture. Nature is when your amygdala in your brain doesn't work properly. The amygdala are part of the limbic system, about as big as an almond, about 1.5 inches in, right there. And those are the things that give you empathy, where you not sympathy, where you feel sorry for somebody, but where you feel if somebody sees somebody hit their thumb with a hammer or their finger with a hammer, and you go, "Ooh, gosh, I bet that hurt." That's, in other words, empathy. Or you feel for a dog that's really thirsty. It's a stray dog or a little child or something getting hurt or that has a problem. That's what the amygdala, in other words, do. It gives you the ability to have empathy. Now, psychopaths don't have that ability. They can't feel sorry for someone. They can't feel what that person might feel because their amygdalas are either missing, they're malformed and messed up, or they're just not working. They just don't work, or they're gone, or something's wrong with them. So when you have I guess what you'd call a sociopath, they're still psychopaths, or psychopathic, I guess you'd say. But sociopaths are usually just hardcore criminals who get arrested early. They kill somebody early, or they get killed early. They don't live really a really long time because they're just violent people. And those people most of the time are they grow up without developing those emotions that you and I have as we go through life. Nobody said, "Hey, don't do that to that frog or that little dog or that kitten. That hurts." Or to another child, "You don't know what that little child's going through. Don't be mean to them because they can't help this, or this." So nobody ever does that for those people, for the nurture side of psychopathy. I always use ISIS as a great example. You have a lot of psychopaths in there, but you also have a lot of people who aren't, but have those same traits. And that's because when they're little, they see somebody beating children to death. They watch their mother get beat up all the time. They may have seen their sister be killed by the father for not acting the way she should act in social engagements or the social arena. And all they see is violence. You have someone who's has a parent who's an alcoholic and beats them all the time. All they see is violence their whole life, and that's what they just go to. Is that's the way they think things are. So they start behaving that way. So that's the difference. You've got nature versus nurture, and the nature is someone whose amygdalas don't work. And then you have someone over here who is raised in a violent situation, and their emotions aren't nurtured to be normal human emotions. Greg?
Yeah, no, I think you just hit all the right things there. I think, remember that hardening can occur to any person, regardless of whether they have amygdala failure or not. So a person who has been hardened to crime, hardened to that kind of thing, they're going to have a different approach. And that doesn't mean they're born with that. There's all kinds of ways. Conditioned response is a powerful thing. You can't overestimate the power of being submerged or surrounded by crime, by a lot of that kind of thing. Everything that you are personally is not you. It's a combination of inputs from other people that creates your image. And if you don't believe that, break away from your current life and go live somewhere else and watch what happens. Your personality will change some. I think that ties to the next one I see that I wanted to answer, Scott. And this is, Wolfie is asking, I'm doing my best to control my bias, but I'm struggling in the difference between passion and bias. I don't want to quash all the passion out of me. Don't, because that's what makes us who we are. You should have passion for things you believe in. And because you believe in something I try always to walk the middle of the road and try to understand why people think what they think. But you should have things that matter and that you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not moving past this. Even as a young guy, I tried really hard not to draw many lines in the sand, but things that you're really passionate about, you should be passionate about. Ask yourself and question whether what you're saying makes sense or whether it's a repeating cycle and you're just looping. But you have passion for things you have passion for. It's what makes the world work. Now, if you condemn other people because they don't believe the same way you do, that's when it becomes bias. That's different. And I look at people and say, I have very strong and very, very hard beliefs about a handful of things that matter to me, and they're not going to change. That doesn't mean I hate other people because they don't believe the same thing. I just don't understand why they feel that way. But most of us come to where we are, again, by all of our inputs in life bringing us to where we are. Not by, hey, I'm Greg and I'm this, but by all these things behind me, all these things in my past life have created who I am. And you got to pay attention to that.
Yeah. All right. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we're in Body Language Membership at bodylanguagemembership.com, and we're answering questions from people inside our membership. So we're not answering the questions from YouTube. I'm seeing a lot of people go, hey, answer this, and what about this? But so this is for our membership site, and we have a live Q&A every week. We try to every week.
Yep.
All right, this is from John, and he says, I was talking to an ex-intelligence agent, and he said that in his experience, 90% of how he uses body language is eyes. I know how Greg would feel about this, but Scott, where do you stand? Greg is big on eyes. Well, It depends on what's happening. You know, there's a lot happening with the eyes, but you can't just count on that. You have to look at the whole picture. Not only do you look at the picture, what's going on with that person, but you look at what's going on around them, what's happening in context with that situation. So if someone's thinking, I did a thing with Kyle Dunnigan last night. We looked at some videos of him asking his mom questions about whether she gambled too much or whether she really wanted to sell these things online, some clothes and luggage and things she was trying to get rid of. And she was one that would always look up and look around and scan while she was thinking of the answer. So everybody approaches the way they think about things differently. When you break eye contact with someone, that's fine if you're telling the truth. You know, most people think that they don't want to break eye contact when they're telling the truth because they think the person that they're talking to will be under the impression they're lying. Well, come to find out that we know now from a lot of studies and some really big ones that that's not true at all. The person who's lying to you is probably going to be the one who looks at you the most and doesn't break eye contact. And the reason being, they want to make sure you believe them. So as if I'm lying to you, I don't want to look away, because if you go like this while I'm saying something, I want to be able to add what are called qualifiers to make my answer sound more believable and more plausible for what's going on. Greg, you're the eye guy.
That's the romancer. Right? That's the romancer. I want to pay attention to you. In our thetruecrimeworkshop.com, we talk about a person who's paying really close attention to you so they don't make mistakes. That's the romancer. Yeah. So in terms of eyes, if you go back and watch through all of the shows we've done on the behavior panel, or what we talk about here, you'll see me focus on eyes occasionally, because I'm not controlling the question. And if the questions are poorly asked and a person's eyes are all over the board, I can't even baseline that. But when they are asked a very specific question about who they saw at a store, and their eyes go to a pattern that's different from what they've been answering other physical questions, it needs to be single sensory channel. You need to control it. So eye movement is a powerful thing. And we have inside the course right now in the academy, if you go look, I put 10 short classes together on eye movement, not to tell you, but to teach you how to baseline other people and go and figure out what's going on in their head. So yeah, I'm a real believer that eye movement matters, but I also think you have to control the conversation to be able to read it effectively.
Yeah. All right. Norma asks, does hypnosis work over Zoom or Skype? And somebody else also asked about hypnosis in here as well, what our thoughts were on it. I'm one of those people.
I don't know enough to be intelligent about it.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Yeah. I of course, I'm one of those people that goes, you can't hypnotize me. I don't think you can be hypnotized if you don't want to be. So you'd have to be into it. But I don't think you can sit there and talk to somebody and go back and forth and hypnotize them as you're talking to them. Instead of having a watch going back and forth or whatever it is. I don't know.
I don't know.
One of the questions was about interrogation and hypnosis.
I wouldn't trust it. Guys, for interrogation, there's a method. And when we talk about interrogation, I often try to remind everybody there's more than one kind of interrogation. There's interrogation for confession. There's interrogation for intelligence. The intelligence side, it's about reliable targeting information. So think about war, and think about when we bomb a place. We're doing that based on 3 channels usually. We've got satellite imagery, we've got some kind of signals imagery, some kind of signals intelligence, and then we get a human piece to verify the target is actual. So what I want you to think about is none of this stuff is magical. It's all a tool in our bag. And a good interrogator is working from things called control questions. So I may ask Scott, hey Scott, where do you live? I know the answer to that question. If he answers incorrectly, I know he's not trustworthy. I may have a repeat question. I ask you a question one way, I change the format of the question the next time so that I'm getting an opportunity for you to lie to me again. And what we do is we validate what we're hearing. And for example, in my days as an intelligence interrogator and terrorism and those kinds of things, you've got a situation map of known things that happened in the past 48 hours, 72 hours in the area. So when I walk in to talk to a prisoner, I'm talking to that person based on where they were captured, what they were carrying when they were captured, what kind of ID. I look at everything they carried, and I use that as a foundation for validating where they're telling the truth or not. So lots of tools, and I want you to think about that. Hypnosis, I've never seen used in interrogation, not saying they don't now or that things are not changing, but good methodical process is what breaks liars.
All right. Now, Brian Jaffe's is in the membership, and for a long time, I always thought it was Byron because I have dyslexia, and it says, although it says B-R-Y-O-N, I thought it was B-Y-R-O-N. So, Brian, I got it right this time for the first time. So, and your question, and Brian's question is, when you're constantly zoned in on other people's nonverbals, do you catch yourself or notice when you do the same? Has it ever helped you in a personal situation? Can you give an example? Thank you. Greg, you want to go first on that one?
So I think what I heard was, do you notice your own facial expression when you're focused on other people, when you're paying attention? Yeah, if you guys watch me, I break eye contact when I feel like it. I don't worry about it because I know that I'm telling the truth. And so I don't worry about another person's perception unless I'm in a situation where people have some preconceived notions. Crossing my arms, I may use that for effect when I'm talking to somebody across the table and do this because I know that they think that means I'm closing them out. I may do that and then listen and pay attention to what impact that has on them. So have I ever fished using body language? Of course. I fish all the time. Use your forehead to get their attention. And it makes you more effective. I think Mark's TED Talk on being disingenuous is powerful, because that's what he's talking about, using the body language to send the message the person needs. So yeah, I use it occasionally. Scott, I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. You sort of have to, because if not, if you're in a situation, if you're asking someone a question and you know they're full of it, and you don't want to go, hey man, what about so and so? You want to go, let's talk about this. You've got to completely come on fake, but make it look as real as you can, like you're concerned and really want to know, where you know the answer, and you're like, you want to go, why'd you do this? But you want to look normal. You want to look like everything's fine, because you can't let them know what you know so far, and you'll let them know by your body language. That says a lot to them. So you really got to be careful with all that. But out in the wild,
we're professional liars. We're professional liars in that case. Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it that way.
Yeah,
like a politician.
And out in the wild, when you're talking to someone, you do that too. Everybody does, because you may not be feeling great, and you may not know that person's not feeling great because of what they're showing you at the time. So, and you may be doing the same thing because you want everybody to think everything's fine, so everything looks normal. So yeah, that's something I do it all the time. You do it all the time. Greg does it all the time.
Yeah, here's one. Jason asked, in the last behavior video on Stephanie Lazarus, the term chin boss was referred to, but I could not pick up on what that movement is. It's this.
It's right
now,
in here.
you can't, controlling it, you'll see that it draws the corners of your mouth down. I'm pretty good at controlling muscles in my face, and I can't do that without drawing my mouth down. And in grief or in sadness or anything that's using the chin boss, it does it without pulling the sides of your mouth down. Hopefully that helps.
Here's one from Wolfie. What was the light bulb moment for you both when did you know you were a couple of geeks?
Well, I was born a geek. It just took me a long time to be okay with it, I guess. When you're talking about this body language thing, I'll tell you when I first realized it works is we were going through Kuwait City after the war, and we had taken hundreds and hundreds of prisoners because we had broadcast in Arabic, all bad guys come out, basically, criminals come out. And I still remember when I was talking to the Kuwaiti commander, and he said, we're going to broadcast a tape that says all criminals come out. And I said, oh yeah, that's going to work. And we were driving down the road with armored vehicles, broadcasting this message, and hundreds of people came out with their hands up. So culture matters. And we handcuffed hundreds of people, literally. And I spent a couple hours walking down the list, deciding who we kept and who we let go. And we let a lot of people go because they just misunderstood the situation. But there was a kid, I'll never forget this kid, his face, and I was talking to him, and he just, everything was wrong. And so I said, truck, take him away. And not 2 days later, I got a message that said, hey, how'd you know this guy was wanted? And I didn't. I just knew his body language was messed. From then on, I've been a believer.
Why would he come out?
It's because he was afraid of what would happen if they didn't come out.
Wow, that's so weird,
Hundreds of people came out. I'm not kidding you. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen.
Wow. Well, I get reminded that I'm a geek all the time. When somebody goes, dude, what are you reading? I don't know if I always talk about reading in Kindles. But if you have a Kindle and you're out somewhere and you're waiting on something and you start reading, and then somebody sees you sitting there reading while you're waiting for coffee or something, and you're not sitting down, you're just standing there reading, and they go, dude, what are you doing? So yeah, it's quite often I get reminded. Or if you're talking to someone, they say, well, tell me about this thing about, especially when it comes to psychopathy or any kind of body language, when I start talking about it, I sort of have to reel myself in because I'll go deep with you. And then after I'm explaining, get really into research and studies because I think they're into it, because I think they'd want to know, because I'd want to know. Then they just get that glazed look over their eye and you go, oh, I gotta stop this. And you go, so anyway, that's what it is. And they're like, okay, great. Oh, it was nice meeting you. Yeah. So those you get little reminders like that when you go too far by trying to give too much information, which lets you know you probably have too much information.
Hey, I got one here I'd like to answer. John Michael asked this question. Can you give a quick review and comparison of the anchor and redirect from yesterday's show? So the reason I haven't used this yet in our show is because I haven't seen anyone do it. So chaff and redirect, we all know, is, you throw out a lot of garbage and it's like chaff in an aircraft, the missile follows the wrong path. But anchor and redirect is sophisticated. It takes a certain kind of liar to do it. And what I do is I tell you a story. And if Stephanie Lazarus in the show didn't cover this, but she does in the entire interview, she says, I've taken 10,000 photos, tens of thousands of photos. And that is an anchor that she's going to use to come back to. So when you say, hey, what kind of car do you drive? Hey, I've got a picture of him in his car. I took it back in, boom, boom, boom. Now she's redirected the conversation. So using an anchor point to go back to, that's a point of conversation you use is anchor and redirect. And it's a fairly sophisticated lying technique. I was impressed to see it used, that she was using it so effectively. Of course, these guys were good enough to pull her off of it.
Yeah. Again, I'm looking at all these people on YouTube. We got a bunch of them watching. And what we're doing here, keep asking. Yeah, we're at bodylanguagemembership.com, and we're answering questions from inside our membership. And you have to be a member to be able to ask questions. So that's what we're doing. It just goes live on YouTube because I haven't figured out how to not to make it live on YouTube as we do this. So it's for our membership. Here's one from John. It says, he asks, how does someone get started doing this for a living? Do I just say, hey, I'm a body language expert and I've been through all these training courses? Where would you start looking for jobs?
Some people do.
Yeah.
There are people doing it today.
Some people do just that. And they Google all their information and they go out and start telling people. So Greg and I have a different situation. We're training people. We give them information and get them killed if it's not right. So our information has to be spot on and up to date. I mean, it's not one of those things where with the 738-55 rule of communication, which is 30-some years ago, and nobody's up to, and most people think that's a valid study, when it's not, because I talked to Albert Marabi, and he's the guy that did the study, and he said, listen, this isn't right. Anybody you talk to, tell them this isn't right. So people go and they'll Google these things, and they'll start giving bad information. So yeah, you can take courses and learn things, like you can take our courses and learn, but once we teach you that stuff, go learn about it again. The more you're exposed to the same stuff, the more you'll remember that. Read all the books you can from valid people and valid books. Like we always talk about Joe Navarro. He's the King Kong of body language and body language books. Greg's had 11. Greg's got 11 books. Read 10, Greg's books. 10. Is it 10? I thought it was 11.
Yeah,
dang it.
10. The one we're working on will be 11, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, check Greg's books out. Read those. He's got some great ones. Joe Navarro's got great books. Chase has great books. Mark Bowden has great books.
Yep.
Check out. It's hard to know who's valid and who isn't. But when you watch them and you get this weird gut feeling where they say, well, you raise your hand in court, if your fingers are apart, that means you're going to lie. And they'll say, I know who's not going to be honest on a jury. It's like, you got to be kidding me when people start that. So you really got to be careful who you get the information from. But what you can do is, once you start collecting that, you can start giving little talks, at like the Lions Club or something, and you get a little structure for how you're going to present your stuff or what you know, and you could start giving talks on that. But you would start off on I guess presentation things, because there's so much to learn, but that might be a great place to start. How you can get along with people better, how they can perceive you better, those types of things, instead of getting into the in-depth research and stuff, because that stuff takes years. Not that you can't do it, because everything we're talking about, and people will argue this, but it's all academic and anybody can learn it. There's no magic to it. There's nothing special. We're not some kind of special person that can do that at all. I'm just some dude in Nashville. So, and basically that's it. I've just read a lot and I've learned a lot. Now I've learned how to structure
and try to prove
to other people.
The other thing, guys, to do is to try to prove it wrong. If you're not trying to prove wrong what you think and know, you got a problem. Because if you're trying to prove right everything that you think and know, then it's a self-perpetuating problem. What we know is there are people, somebody asked about this physiognomy stuff, like if your nose is big, it means this. Well, no. Because if that were true, all people with big noses would do the same thing. All people with big ears would do the same thing. So I think what you need to do is look for why something happens. The more you know about human behavior, the body language stuff for me is interesting. And Scott will tell you, I always say body language is interesting. Why is what I care about. I want to know why a person does what they do, including the body language. And if you'll dig past that, if you'll stop looking at browse meant that and look at why did they do it, like that. Why do we do it? Because it's innate. We know that humans signal, chimps signal. We know that we do things for a reason. Some of that is hardwired. When we get past the hardwired, why do they do other things? Why would a person commit all these heinous crimes? You want to dig back into what they're doing. Why is a person lying to me about this? I care about that more than anything else, so that all the symbols then become important, but you want to dig past that and try to prove them wrong as well. Because interrogating people, you find lots of motivation to do the wrong thing. Why? That's always been my driver. Scott, I'm sure you have a different driver too than just the body language.
Oh, yeah. I just think it's fascinating. I love learning stuff. As corny as that sounds, I don't care to say it. Screw it. We're already talking about it. Yeah, I like learning stuff. I like reading about that. I like knowing what a person's going to do next, because you never know. So that's actually that's the thing that sparks me is what's that guy going to do next? What's that woman going to do next? While you're talking to them or you watch them on TV or whatever, I'm just fascinated with that. My wife hates it because I'm constantly going, watch this. Wait, get ready, watch this. And she'll be reading or something. She hates that. K. Marm says, Stephanie Lazarus' face looks like it was plugged directly into the main electricity supply, then pulsed.
That's a great one. Hey, here's a good one from Lynn. I was wondering if you guys have body language tactics that can be used for pre-attack indicators. What we should do, Scott, is a pre-violence session in here, because people might get something out of it and be good. Yeah. Pre-violence is pretty predictable. We teach law enforcement and military folks that kind of stuff. There are lots of short, quick indicators. I mean, fight or flight takes its toll on people, and fight or flight is going to show up. And people who don't have negative fight or flight response usually are psychopaths, but other than that, almost all of us show them. And there are things you can watch for. Everybody who has fought in their life in some way will have their own model. Movement of a shoulder almost always occurs before somebody moves something else. We'll put something together and put it in courses. Right now we're doing the eye movement, and we got a couple of others coming up next week. We'll put that in rotation and get that one in as well.
The rest of the Liar's Loop is coming out as well, because we're dripping that out about once a week. I know we said we do one every month, but it's, we got a lot of stuff. So
there's too many of you guys who are asking for more stuff, so we want to keep you going and things that you can use. So thanks for all the questions in the community as well. Yeah, those are great questions this week.
Norma asks, are all narcissists dangerous, or the different kinds? Not all narcissists are dangerous. Some are just buttholes, most of them. I hate to say it that way. I'm trying to anyway. So most of them, a lot of them aren't any problem at all. You know who they are, and they're just a little bit, nobody likes being around that. But they get themselves in situations where they're in charge and where they're the boss or the chief, they're the CEO of something, or they're in a higher level thing. So you have to deal with them. But not all of them are dangerous. No, you have malignant narcissists, which are quite often dangerous. It just depends. A lot of people think, even though all psychopaths are narcissists, not all narcissists are psychopaths, but narcissists can be mean. They can be really mean, not just physically, but psychologically. That's the bad part of it. When you have one that's mean and aggressive psychologically to other people, especially those people around them. People who have narcissistic parents, you've got to, bless their hearts, it's such a horrible thing when that goes sideways for that person growing up, because they know nothing different than that life or being raised by that. It just puts a whole different spin on everything for you. Greg?
Yeah, no, I've known some really good folks who have narcissistic tendencies, and you run into them a fair amount in corporations. And, it takes a certain amount of bravado to grow and go to certain levels in companies, and you run into them there. And some of them are, their hearts are genuinely not intended to be bad. But if you don't feel good about self, you do a lot of things like self-aggrandizing language and all that kind of thing. So I don't think they're always dangerous. They may irritate the hell out of you, though, is part of it. So you just got to get used to it and deal with it. And you got to be careful, guys. Not all people who do horrible things are diagnosable in other places. There are people who do all kinds of horrible things in the world that you don't necessarily see anything coming from them. So just pay attention to people. Somebody just asked a question about if I feel insecure and I'm justifying. Let me go back and look at that one. I think it's a good one. If I'm justifying, does it look like lying? Quickly, I think it's worth answering. It's Kate. Does self-justification when you're insecure look like lying? There are a lot of requests for approval and qualifying. It happens as an adult if you've been conditioned for guilt as a child. The thing is, there's no real indicator of lying. There's an indicator of discomfort. And that's why I say why is the most important thing. You got to dig past that, because this doesn't mean I'm lying when I do request for approval. If I don't do it normally and then suddenly I go, hey, you believe that, don't you? Then it means something. So you got to dig past that when you're talking to people. And if you think about all of these pieces, the reason I say body language is a tool is because all these tools have to come together. Then you got to follow up with questions and answer the details. Sorry, Scott, just thought that was a good one to jump in with.
Oh, that is a great one. Sorry, I was looking at the YouTube thing. Somebody want to know how much it costs to be in the in body language membership. It's $19 a month. So let's see. I just had one. Here's one.
A lot of good ones out here.
Oh, yeah. Here's one from Aaron. I'm writing and illustrating a workbook for children experiencing grief and loss. I'm wondering what your routine is when working on your books. Greg, you got 10 of them. Why don't you do this one?
Yeah, so the best part of my writing books is I'm not coming up with anything. I'm just thinking. And I had a great writing partner on all 10 books, Marianne Corinch. Can't say enough good things about her. We'll bring her on. Marianne has been one of the best team-built people I know because she's worked with other friends. She said one time I can make a career out of working with your friends. Great partner.
With Jim Pyle.
Yeah, with Jim Pyle. She's written with Lena. She's written with a bunch of other folks. And my process with her is I talk, she puts it on paper, and then I would go back and read through it and correct some things to get my voice where it was. And we were great partners in that way. But it allows me time to think and to think about pieces. And like everybody, when I'm writing, you always get to a point where you're like, that doesn't make sense. One of my favorite books I wrote was a book called Get People to Do What You Want. And that started off one way, and I scrapped the entire book and rewrote it in 21 days with Marianne. It came to me what I needed to put in there to make it useful as opposed to what we were writing. So like everybody, you got to structure it. Process flows and structure are important to me and the way things work. If you don't know this, I spent 20 years in corporate America as a process guy. And so that world is the way I think. My brain goes if A, then B, that kind of thing. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy Brennan asks, at what age can children display signs of psychopathy or similar conditions? Early, really early. They'll be mean to little animals. They'll be mean to other little children. They'll hit them. And their behavior is antisocial, which is the name of, that's what psychopathy is referred to as in the DSM, which is the manual for, so what I guess you'd say psychological problems or people to diagnose what's wrong with people psychologically. So it can start early. It can start early. That's why you see when you're dealing with a psychopath, you want to ask questions like, has this person, do they have a history of being mean to animals? By mean to them, I mean burning them, cutting them, breaking their arms, and watching them walk around and watch that animal deal with a broken leg, those kind of things. Cut their ears off, noses, all kinds of things. Sometimes they can be terrible to them. Not when they're just goofing around and accidentally hurt a little dog or a kitten or something, but when they're doing stuff on purpose. And they'll hurt other little children too. They'll take things from them. They'll steal their stuff, children do that. But when you see someone doing it aggressively and it doesn't bother them, and no matter what you do to them, it doesn't correct that behavior, then you've got a problem. There are a lot of studies on that, and it's about a 4-hour conversation. But in a nutshell, those are some things to look for.
Yeah, I'm not smiling about that because that's a good question. John Michael again asked personal question, a little bit off topic. Somebody asked also what kind of earbuds we're wearing. These are Jabra 85Ts, I think is what they are.
Yeah,
they're awesome. Not also our mic. Our mics are a different thing. I'm using a Shure MV7, VM7.
I got the same thing.
MV7, yeah.
But these are great because you push the button and it scrolls through this thing where you have it makes everything really, really quiet. You can have hear through, so it sounds like you're just listening. You can talk to people like here. I've got it so I hear nothing else in the room but us talking. But you can also have hear through, so you can hear other things going on in the house, or if my wife's hollering for me or something. And the music in it sounds great. Haven't been in the music business. I'll tell you, these things are great. They're awesome.
They are great. Yep.
And they were
the other one. The other question
enough to give us all some. So.
Right, they gave us all the behavior panels. Some of these. Yep. So it's been great. I also use their commercial version for running, and it's great. It tracks your distance.
It's a 75.
Kind of so, yeah,
I got the 65s as well, which are cool.
Hey, the other question was, do we get recognized in our hometown? That's been an interesting thing. I ran into a very nice lady, Trish, when I was back home a couple of weeks ago, and she told me her husband and her and she watched this all the time, or she listens when she's driving on the road. Funniest thing in the world was I had on a mask, of course, and I was talking to her about a topic, and she didn't know who I was. She'd said, "You look familiar." She had on a mask. I turned around and looked, and it snapped, and her face lit up, and she wanted a selfie. It was kind of fun. And I've had one other person in a place I go to get car stuff done recognize me, and I don't go out that much. Scott had a great expedition this week, so.
So anyway, well, let me tell you, I get in town. I've been recognized at Hattie B's twice. I don't know if it's because I'm there all the time. I go, aren't you the dude that's here all the time? But
you're the hot chicken guy.
Yeah, hey, it's the hot chicken guy. But it was, so anyway, so I'm on a plane, right? And this happened there was a situation that came up where I left town and I had to take 3 flights to a place and then 3 flights back. And it was a long day, right? So on the way back home, I'd been, they give you those little goldfish to eat, right? A little package of goldfish and water, and that's it. Used to, you get lunch and hang out and talk and everything. We always got masks on. So I had this thing called a kind bar, and it was the one, what's my favorite, it's the dark chocolate with peanut butter in it, right? And it's got nuts all over it. So I'm pulling my mask up and I'm eating this bar, and this woman next to me, she says, "So what do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a body language expert and analyst and blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Oh, I love body language. I watch the body language on the internet all the time." I said, "Oh, okay, that's great." And I'm still eating this thing. And I said, so what do you watch? She said, "Well, I watch all kinds of things on YouTube. I watch when people talk about criminals and things. There's this one where there's these interrogators and they just tell you what they think they see about body language." And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." So I do. I said, "Really?" And so I get my phone out and it's hooked up to the internet in the plane. I said, "Is this it?" She goes, "Yes, the behavior panel. That's them. That's them." And I said, without taking my mask off, I said, "Do you recognize anybody in there?" And she says, "Yes, I do." "Yeah." And I said, "Which one?" She goes, "Greg Hartley." I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, Greg Hartley." And so then I said, "Well, I'm on here too." She said, "You are?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I take my mask off, and she doesn't look at me with recognition like, "Oh," she goes, it's like she was shocked. And so I put my mask back. I'm like, I ain't the best looking guy in the world, but I didn't think I was hideous. And she says, and then she started talking about something. And this woman next to me goes, and then I was like, well, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. And when I turn around, this woman goes, "My daughter watches the behavior panel all the time." I said, "She does." And she said, "You're on there?" I said, "Yeah." And so as I'm getting up, I said, "Let me go to the bathroom, be right back." She goes, "Well, which one are you?" I said, "Well, I'm Scott." And I pull my face mask down. And she goes, "Like that too?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I get up and I go in the bathroom and I'm like, "Yeah, it's been a long day." I go in the bathroom, I take my mask off, and I'd been eating that chocolate bar, and it was all over me. It just looked like I'd taken something and just like a clown, like just rubbed it all over my face, like I was like a 3-year-old. Like, it was all over me, and I was like, "Oh my God." So I go back and sit down, and the lady goes, she goes, "So how long have you been doing that?" I was like, "Oh, we did it 2 years or whatever." And she goes, no, I didn't tell her my name. That's what it was. She didn't say this one over here. She goes, "Now, what's your name?" When I sat back down, and I go, "Chase Hughes." She goes, "Oh, I can't wait to tell my daughter." I said, "I can't wait for you to tell her either." So I know every Thanksgiving from now on, she's going to say, "I met Chase Hughes from that." Man, he had, I don't know what it was all over his face, but he took his mask off and he had stuff all over his face. So she'll be telling that story forever. Okay, who's up? Let's see. Oh, so Marie likes kind bars as well. What do you think about Bolton's and pepper fire? The pepper fire grilled cheese. Wow, that's what you order when you kind of want to die, but you're not really trying to die. I don't know about those. I don't know what those are. I don't think they have them at Hattie B's, but I only get the same thing every time I go there. Will you guys ever? And then Kate asked, "Will you guys ever do a conference in the UK?" Actually, we were talking about doing that, but at this point, for now, and
everything's still frozen at the moment. Yeah. I'm a great big UK fan. I think I've only been there about 19 times. So it's
love it.
I worked for the RAF for a few years off and on. Been all over the country. Love it there. My wife loves it there. We're waiting for everything to open back up. It's one of my favorite places to visit.
Yeah, so, I love it there. Now, if you're in London and go to Hyde, if you know where Hyde Park is, then there's a place over there called the Black Swan. I've thrown up in that place. I can't tell you how many times over the years. That's one of my favorite places in the whole world. Is the Black Swan right there by Hyde Park.
Well, I'm not a city guy, so I get out of London as quickly as I can and go to other areas. But I love UK. Beautiful.
I love London. I love it. Let's see. Mitch Tolbert, tetrad. I don't know what that means. Tetrad.
Hey, Rachel, I love Ireland too. I'm not slighting you. I've been to Ireland a couple of times as well.
I've never
spent
been.
Some time. Oh, beautiful.
Everybody I know has
spent time in
been.
Cork and Cashel and out in the countryside, and it is beautiful. Yep. My wife wants to go there as well. So we're waiting for things to open up.
Let's see. What else we got? Wow. I should have told the story. Sorry, that was too long. Let's see.
It's okay.
So I'll talk, as you search for a question, I'll talk about bodylanguagemembership.com. If you're on YouTube, that's what we're doing. We're at bodylanguagemembership.com, and it's a monthly subscription, and we're answering questions from inside the membership in the community. There, we have a killer community in there, and so that's what we're doing. So we're not answering questions from YouTube, although we're on there. I can't figure out how to get it off of there.
I see live. Norma, thanks for the congratulations on my new job in my real life. If you don't know, guys, I've always strung together many things, and I happen to string together a career that involves corporate America, some Wall Street stuff, and doing this throughout my entire time. I've not quit one or the other, and I just cut back and went to a great opportunity with a good team. So I'm working for those guys a few days a week, as well as keeping up our stuff here and doing a whole bunch of other things. So anything, my expertise in business probably is something I value as much as my expertise in the behavior and body language piece. I tie it together and create things that work in business for the why and the how.
Brian Jaffe says, Robert Phipps, ? Yeah, I know Robert Phipps. Great guy. That's another valid person you should check out.
Yep.
Oh, man, I love that guy. We should have him on. We should talk to him. You know what? We should do it. We should interview him for this.
Yeah, we need to bring him, and we need to go get Peter Hyatt. Peter, of course.
Oh, man, yeah.
Says good things, so we need to bring him on. We like Peter when we were on with Eric.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Eric's like a witch doctor putting people together. It's amazing how much stuff he can get. He's a chemist.
Kidding.
He pulls the right people together. If you don't watch Unstructured, you're missing something, guys. Eric Hunley has the best talent for bringing people together and getting topics covered. So go watch Unstructured. Eric's wonderful.
And when he asks questions, he's not talking the whole time. He'll ask a question and shut up, and the person just keeps talking. He does such a great job. And he's a member in here. That's right. He's in here as well.
We love Eric. Yep.
If it wasn't for Eric, we wouldn't have the behavior panel wouldn't exist.
That's right.
That's where I met Chase. Was through that. So that's how we all got connected. Mark knew him, but I hadn't met him. But I think he met him through Eric as well. Because Eric said, "Do you know Chase Easel?" I was like, "No." He's, "Dude, you got to meet him." So he connected us. That's how we actually met. Was through Eric. You got to check that out. Unstructured. It's great. I watch all of them.
Alicia asked, "Are we keeping up with Summer Wells?" We haven't done anything else with Summer Wells. We'll go back and visit a couple of cases over time. Right now, we've got so many other things ahead, and we're trying to keep up. And we will go back and check some of those. I will tell you, I look at headlines occasionally to see where things are, just like Madeleine McCann. I want to know where that case goes. And there's constantly something in the news about those. We haven't looked at Summer Wells since the case. Maybe it's worth a revisit. But we've got so many things headed up. We've got things coming up in the next couple of weeks already booked for the behavior panel, for example. So there's certainly opportunity to go back and revisit a couple of these, but over time. Aaron asked a question about people who use words like vehicle, recall, firearm, proceeded instead of car, remember, gun, etc. when speaking with law enforcement in court. Sounds silly and unnatural, and smack them on the forehead. Yeah, I agree with you, Aaron. I think sometimes that makes me feel like they're trying to placate law enforcement or that kind of thing. But in some cases, it's the way they talk. It took me a while after leaving the military to not say vehicle and firearm and that kind of thing when I'm talking to average people. And when you get back in the group, that's how you talk. So it depends on what their background is and their experience is. And I think a lot of people would like to be, from that world. Scott, you deal with some SF guys and that kind of thing. They live in that world. When I was in my 20s, I worked in a place where I got to teach anti-terror and protective driving and all that kind of stuff, and that becomes part of who you are. And people around you get infected by it if they're enamored of that life. So you got to be careful with it.
One thing I tell you is if you do take those, if you are from the protective driving world, you drive like a maniac afterwards. So if you've ever been with Greg, I mean, I'm 26 years old, but I look much older, I think, because I drive around from driving with Greg, I look like this. Oh my God, dude, you scare me to death sometimes. You don't even realize it. Then I'll call him and go, "What's all that noise?" Just driving. Like, oh, okay. Sam D says, "Do you guys have little signals to each other in the behavior panel YouTube videos?" I don't know what you'd. We're busted. Yeah, we talk to each other a lot during those, and you'll see little things.
If you pay really close attention, you'll see them. But yeah, we signal each other with things occasionally. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we actually do. So if you'll watch, you'll see repetitive behaviors that aren't adapters, but we don't do them over and over and over. But you'll see a few things in there to let the other one to Mark doesn't do this with us, but Chase and Greg and I do. And so we'll talk to each other about maybe we shouldn't talk about this. Maybe we should hold back on this. Yeah, you're going next. Yep. Those kind of things. So Here's a question from Jamie.
Do y'all watch people? I don't know where you're from, Jamie, but somewhere in my neck of the woods, it sounds like. Do y'all watch people when you're out? Scott, great people watching the public library, so you must be in Nashville. Say hi if you come by. My eyes would never glaze over at your answers. Interestingly, for 20 years, I've been writing books for 20 years, give or take, on this topic, working on 16 years. And I taught before that, and I kind of turned it off a few years ago, and Scott dragged me back in. Thank you, Scott. I'm enjoying myself again. But Scott dragged me back into this about 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And I will tell you that now I can't turn it off again. I had it turned way down. And when I'm out now, I look at people and my wife will go, "Okay, it's on. I see it. What's going on?" We were in a place a couple of weeks ago out on the lake, and there were 3 people sitting there. One guy got up. The 3 were sitting together at the end of a counter. One guy got up, walked out, and the other 2 looked at each other. And my hackles went up, and I immediately started watching him in the parking lot just to be sure nothing was going on, because my brain goes to bad things when people do coordinated movement that way. Turned out they just didn't like the guy. I heard him talking about him as I walked past him. But yeah, you just never know.
So what was this? What about the library? Somebody's here in the library here?
He said, "Come by and say hi. Come by and say hi."
Wow. Okay, who is it? I don't see that one in here.
Jamie.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
Yep. Go look. I'll send it to you. I'll do a quick screen capture so you know who he is.
I'm asking questions about the library. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I have a library card. Do you have one, Greg?
No. There's no library where I live, man. You're kidding, right?
That's true.
I don't have asphalt. Why would I have a library?
You have to helicopter into Greg's place. Wow. Oh, yeah, here's one. I know it's a TV show, but have you ever, either of you watched Dexter? I recently watched the series again with a little body language understanding. I became fascinated by Michael C. Hall's ability to portray a psychopath. Yes, he's an actor, but I know it's possible. Here's the thing. Even though they're coming on like he's a psychopath in that, once you know, I've always had problems with movies and TV shows that weren't realistic, like Star Wars. When I first went as a kid, from the minute it started, I couldn't get into it because you could hear things in space, and I knew better than that. There's no air for the sound to go through. I'm one of those. And there was fire in space when something would blow up. It's like, you got to be kidding. Come on. So when I watched this show, I'd really tried to get into it. I really did. But even in the first 5 minutes of that, he's talking about being a psychopath or all the things he notices, and that was fine. But then as he goes through, he doesn't kill people that he loves or people in his family. There are people he doesn't. So he's not a psychopath. He's just killing people. So things in that show, even though it's a great show, he's not a psychopath. How could he be? If he had empathy for his sister, he never kills her. If he had empathy for other people, and he only kills people who have killed other people that have been mean. So we're looking at somebody who's just psychologically whacked, but not a psychopath, even though he does some horrific things to these people that he kills. And he only kills, I don't know. Okay, well, that's what he does. It's a guy who, to make a long story short, this is the difference in nature versus nurture. Here we go. His parents were killed when he was little, and for some reason, if I remember correctly, he was put in this thing with a bunch of dead bodies, he and his sister, and there was a bunch of blood on the floor, and they were in there for days, and apparently this whacked him out. So he's not a psychopath. but he would be what people call a sociopath. But that's, as we know, those don't exist. But he's the nurture part of psychopathy because he actually has feelings for someone.
That's Ramirez. Ramirez, they say, was made. His uncle made him watch him kill a woman, that kind of stuff. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, and he was really violent. A lot of times psychopaths are violent, but I'll tell you, the person who's not a psychopath will be very violent. A lot of times, the nurture psychopath. I got to come up with a name for that.
And that's what they're saying is that he was. Yeah. Let's see. A couple of others here. Kate, you say you and your son play Guess the Alpha on holiday. I always say alphas don't strut. Those around them strut. You're right. I mean, the quiet one's usually the guy in charge. Spent a lot of my life with those kind of folks, and they usually are pretty quiet.
Okay. Let's see. Opinions on Killing Eve. I've never watched that or read it or what. I don't know it. Yeah. So, let's see.
So we got about 5 minutes, Scott. Let's make sure we get any questions you guys want in here. And guys, anything that you would like for us to cover in another live one. We're going to do a couple of places where we bring in some friends. We've got folks lined up now that summer's over to come in and do some interviews. Jim Pyle's going to come and talk to us. We're going to do some book reviews on a couple of people we're doing. And we're probably going to do that book review a little bit different way. We're going to say, hey, tell us about your book and tell us what you were thinking when you put it together. And, I've tried to reach out to some of the big names. I want to talk to this guy. He's still around, but I don't know that we'll ever get to talk to him. That would be a great one. Yeah, but I sent a link. That would be said, hey, here's what we do. Love to talk to him. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. And if you're watching, and just so you know, this is Body Language Membership. It's a membership site where we have a great community in there. And all we talk about, all we do, all the only things we post are things about body language and human behavior. So if you're into that and you're watching on YouTube, come on in. We're having a blast. And there's a mini course when you first get in there. So you go through that. So if you're not familiar with body language or you like it a lot, you're not that deep in, you can watch that and give you a pretty good idea of where we are on the where we all level of talking about body language that we are. And we have book reviews. We talk to people. We have interviews with people. And then what we also do is sometimes we'll go in and we'll grab people and say, hey, man, are you on? If you are, let's do a Zoom call real quick. We'll do Zoom calls with them. And then you can book a Zoom call with us throughout the month. Man, those things go quick. So if you want to do one of those, you can go in the communication. Is this where we do the... Anyway, so to make a long story short, you can do Zoom calls with us, Greg and I both, or just one of us, depending on what's going on. So we're having a blast in here. Body Language Membership.
And the Zoom calls, guys... In the bodylanguagemembership.com, the Zoom calls can be about nothing. Just if you want to chat with us and ask questions, or there's something you want to give us to look at in the course. We got a lot of coursework coming up. We're going to add a lot more things to we started off trying to not overwhelm people by loading things into the academy. But I will tell you, we want to load a lot of stuff and let you choose between it. We just have to create some kind of keying system so you can find what you're looking for, and we're working through that. But right now we've got eye movement courses that we're loading right now. I think we're on number 5 of 10. And those are not things where I tell you, if you do this, it means that. There's a skill set that you can learn by taking that and going out. Most of the things we teach are going to be performance oriented, meaning you take it, you go out, you do something, you come back and tell us what you learned. You write down what you learned. So you're building a baseline. That's how you build expertise. Reading people's books will take you only so far. Applying it, I define expertise as where knowledge meets life. If all you have is knowledge, that's not expertise. How it works is you going out, doing it, and learning. And so we give you some skill sets here. If you're listening to us on YouTube, we also have a short course, a free course. Scott, remind everybody where that's at so you can go look and see what this is about.
Yeah, it's at bodylanguagejumpstart.com. So you can go in there and see if you like what we're doing, if you like this kind of thing. That's all we do in here. So, that'll give you a pretty good idea what's happening. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it. And if y'all have any other questions, of course, just ask them in the community. We'll get to them as quick as we can. We've got some more stuff coming out. I think the Liar's Loop stuff. We've got there are a few more of those coming out as well. So those will be out. The new ones will be out soon. Drop soon. So.
And guys, we'll be back next week. But thank you for your time this week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. And so what I'm going to do is try to turn this off now. Since I don't know how yet.
Let's see how you do.
All right. Wish me luck. Bang.